You're listening to the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Now, let's preview this T20 World Cup for 2026 and go through all the squads and the teams and talk about their chances of winning this T20 World Cup. Who will be the champions? As I mentioned in the intro, we're purely focusing on the full member nations for this preview, and we are going to do a separate preview of the associate nations. So we're just purely focusing on the full member nations for this preview. A separate one for the associate nations will come out shortly on the YouTube channel for the podcast. But let's kick it off, Jihan, and start with Group A, which has India, Pakistan, USA, the Netherlands, and Namibia. And let's talk about India, first of all, the host nation. First time they're hosting the T20 World Cup since 2016, but in 2021 they were meant to host it, but it was moved to the UAE and Oman for that edition. So for the first time since 2016, they hosted a T20 World Cup. They are two-time champions, 2007, 2024. They were the champions 2 years ago. They come into this T20 World Cup as favourites, and especially in home conditions, they are most likely going to be the favourites, that's for sure. Pretty good squad that they've announced. They look pretty strong. Probably their T20 World Cup to lose. But as we saw in the 50-over World Cup 3 years ago, it was their tournament to lose, and they lost it in the final against Australia. They were undefeated throughout the tournament, made it to the final, and lost it against Australia. Will that happen again in 2026 for this T20 World Cup? Or will they be able to overcome that and deliver when the pressure is on? So, Jihan, India's T20 World Cup to lose, really, is it? Or do you think another team could possibly challenge? But they are coming into this tournament as very strong favourites.
Yeah, I think they are the favourites. Home conditions. Their record since they won the last World Cup has been really, really good, to be honest. I was having a look at it earlier, and they've won every series they played in since then. So they've won 8 series as well as the Asia Cup. And they haven't lost any or haven't drawn any, so that's a pretty good record to have. So I think they're the favourites. Pressure's going to be on them, with it being a home World Cup. And I think it's not to say that there's other teams that could challenge them, particularly towards the back end of the tournament. But yeah, I think for me they're going to be the favourites.
Yeah, definitely they are. They are pretty strong. Obviously, no Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma. They've retired from T20 internationals, but even without them, they have the depth in both batting and bowling to compensate for that. And obviously, IPL experience. A lot of these players have played in the IPL and done well, so that helps. And obviously, that's the advantage that India have it against any other teams around the world. Now, you were in the Caribbean and the USA for that T20 World Cup 2 years ago, Jihan, and you saw India up close because you watched the match that they played against Australia in the Super 8s, which they won comfortably in the end there. Do you think this tournament's going to follow a similar pattern to 2 years ago for them? Undefeated throughout the group stage, Super 8s, and then eventually semi-finals and final?
I think they'll get to the final. But I think the team they play in the final is going to challenge them. South Africa did challenge them in that final, but they ended up messing it up when they had the game won, which is not unusual for South Africa. But I think India will get to the final, and the second best team in the tournament will also join them there, and and then it will just be down to what happens on the day. But I don't think you could say that they're definitely going to win it, because anything could happen on the day. Certain teams, as they're getting towards the back end of the tournament, could bring out their A game, which could topple India in the final. So, yeah, I think my prediction is India get to the final and lose in the final. Hopefully against Australia, but it could be against another team as well.
Yes, no, they are definitely the favourites to take out the whole thing. It could be a similar pattern to what happened 2 years ago in the Caribbean and the USA, where they were able to win the final against South Africa, which South Africa had the game in their grasp, but unfortunately they couldn't finish off the job. And India, in the end, were probably the best team in that tournament, regardless of what happened anyway. So, they should be able to do well in home conditions. Obviously, they play all their games at home, except for the game against Pakistan, and that's going to be in Sri Lanka. But you would think they're still going to be pretty comfortable over there as well. Sri Lanka and India, very similar conditions. But they are definitely the favourites to win, and you just have a look at their squad. Their batting and bowling is pretty packed. They've got the ingredients there for success in this tournament, and they should be able to make it through to the Super 8s and then eventually to the semi-finals and the final. But anything can happen in knockouts, and we've seen that over the years where teams have done well up front, but when it comes to the business end of the tournament, they tend to struggle, and that's what we saw from India in that 2023 World Cup when they lost the final to Australia. But definitely a squad that is going to challenge everyone in this tournament and see what they can do. But we have seen, Jihan, once they have won the T20 World Cup 2 years ago, they've been pretty good in ICC events. India, they had a bit of a thing there where they couldn't get the job done, and the last ICC tournament they won was the Champions Trophy back in 2013. But since winning the T20 World Cup 2 years ago, and then they won the Champions Trophy last year, it's opened the floodgates, and all of that pressure has gone really in the ICC events. They finally flicked the switch after years of disappointment.
Well, yeah, I mean that's definitely true to an extent. I think, if I'm really honest, I think South Africa gifted them that final in the Caribbean 2 years ago, and yeah, they played well to win the Champions Trophy. They had a lot of things going for them in that tournament. And they were probably reeling a little bit from the fact that they weren't able to win the World Cup. But Champions Trophy is it's an important tournament, but it's not the World Cup. It's a mini World Cup basically. So yeah, they managed to win that in home conditions. A lot of these tournaments are being played in India. Actually, this is one thing I noticed. Even the I think it's the 27 World Cup. That's in South Africa, isn't it? Is that right?
Yeah, next year in South Africa, Zimbabwe,
and then and then 2031's in India again. So they get a lot more opportunity to have home conditions for these World Cups. But obviously the last one was an achievement for them. But to be honest, going into that Champions Trophy, I just thought all the conditions and everything was in their favour. I thought they were going to win that. So I don't see that as a massive, huge achievement for them.
Yeah. Yeah, it did cause some controversy last year in that Champions Trophy, the way that things panned out. But anyway, that's been well documented. We won't go into that. But conditions, Jihan, obviously, we've seen in the IPL some high-scoring pitches over the years, flat pitches. Obviously, India know how to use the conditions very well. Are we going to probably see a high-scoring T20 World Cup possibly in India, not so much in Sri Lanka of late because the pitches have been a bit challenging over there and a bit slow, but more so in India in terms of the Indian side of the tournament. From your perspective,
I think so. Yeah, I mean that's what I was thinking as well. The pitches for even for one-day cricket in India are generally pretty good. They're generally pretty high scoring. The IPL is obviously very high scoring. Sri Lanka they tend to play on dust bowls that even in day-night games in one-day games under lights, that doesn't seem to affect things much either. The ball still seems to still seems to grip and turn a lot, and wickets slow down in the second innings. So yeah, I think probably the wickets are going to be a lot better for batting in India, and then you may get some difficult pitches to bat on in Sri Lanka, where on those kind of pitches, spin is obviously going to be really important, which probably brings the teams with the best spinners into the game. What those sort of pitches do is they bring the teams with the better spinners into the game, and they also bring the teams with the better batsmen against spin into the game. So I think probably give subcontinental teams probably a little bit more of a chance compared to if you're playing the tournament in Australia or South Africa or England, for example.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. It's definitely an advantage, especially playing at home. And we shall see what happens there. But just to wrap up about India, yeah, pretty strong favourites. Probably their T20 World Cup to lose, but anything could happen. It's not a certainty, as we saw what happened 3 years ago in the 50-over World Cup. You play well in the first part of the tournament, but if you don't get it done at the business end, it's all for nothing. And that's what happened to India 3 years ago. So they'll be hoping to sort of rectify that in this T20 World Cup. But it won't heal the scars or the memories of what happened 3 years ago and what Travis Head did in that run chase in the final, which is hard to believe it was 3 years ago this year. But India definitely the team to beat in this tournament, and definitely a good chance of going back-to-back